Gonna take a
No,
second.
but I mean, no, meaning that if that's good, it's on the,
Yes, he's on the way.
it's moving in the
Yes.
right direction.
Absolutely.
How about that? That's what I meant.
Absolutely. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Great to see people. If you're, oh, hi, Asha, hi, Mark, Beth, Brenda, Laney, Daniel, and people in the room. We have a visitor from, Lourdes, where are you from again?
Nebraska.
Nebraska,
From
Brazil, and the rest are New Yorkers.
Very boring. Boring New York.
And we have a bunch of different states.
Canada too. Canada too.
Canada. But who said that?
Alexis, I met you last year in November. I'm home now.
Oh, yes,
Not in Mali
Alexis,
anymore. Hi.
Hi, welcome from Canada.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. So glad to be here. Blessings.
Where in Canada?
I'm in Ottawa, in the capital.
Nice. Okay, so we are going to get started. Caroline, ready for the, oh, you have to turn off your audio. Okay. For the bracha over Torah study. Okay. Okay, everybody in cacophony. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asot b'divrei Torah. So here we are about to enjoy the blessing of soaking in Torah, but we're going to be soaking in today's little, enmity between brothers, a lot of hatred, some violence. And just kind of figuring out how we wrestle and reckon with that. So I'm going to share my screen. No, that didn't work. Hold on a second. Share. Okay, let's try this again. Is the link in the chat?
Yeah, the link's in the chat, yeah.
Okay, let me try this again. Hold on, everybody. Hopefully the text will be with us in a moment. Okay, share. Aha, here we go. Yes? Joseph desperately seeking his brothers. I took my inspiration for this from a number of places, including a beautiful Dvar Torah that Asher Chaim wrote this week. And is about to deliver this morning, correct? Yes, in Chicago. So what I wanted to do today, it's mostly biblical text. I want to dive into the text and really look carefully at the language and think about intertext. So there's some commentary, some midrash, but mostly biblical text, and thinking about what is this culminating story doing in Genesis. So Joseph's story begins in chapter 37 and goes to the end of Genesis, which is chapter 50. And scholars refer to it as a kind of novella, right? And it's like an intricate, interwoven tale about Joseph, his character development, and as well as his dysfunctional, disturbed relationship with his family. So that's where we're starting, his relationship with his family. And we're going to see all kinds of echoes from past stories, narratives, episodes in Genesis. Okay, so we start off Genesis 37, verse 1, source 1. Vayeshev Yaakov be'eretz migurei aviv. So already that's a fascinating phrase because polarities are set up. Jacob settled in the land of his father's sojourning. So Isaac sojourned or wandered or kept moving in the land of Canaan. And Jacob wanted to settle. And there's one midrash about this that says whenever someone tries to settle, disaster happens, right? Which kind of makes sense. Like you want to you want like all the trouble to end, and maybe you're like forcing it a little bit, and then it all erupts, which is exactly what happens here. And at a certain point in your life, of course you want things to be settled. But think about Jacob's life, right? His daughter was raped, his brothers massacred, the men of the town of Shem in revenge. His son slept with one of his wives. I think it's Reuben with Bilhah. All kinds of things. Jacob has really, really wrestled with a lot of hard things in his life. He's terrified about his brother killing him, but his brother doesn't kill him. The wife that he wanted to marry was switched with the other wife, and the Torah referred to her as the hated wife. So the hated wife and a loved wife. So there's that polarity. Okay, so let's see what happens. The next verse is really also kind of, well, I don't know if the first verse was confusing, but it just, threw a lot at us in terms of setting up the story, the settling, the wandering. The next verse, Ele Toldot Yaakov. These are the generations of Jacob. So this is a very confusing verse because you expect to hear a genealogy, but instead what you get is Joseph's life. Yosef ben Shva Esrei Shana. Joseph is 17 years old. So, hi, good to see you. Welcome. So the Midrash and the Rashi says a lot about this. One thing they say is that Jacob and Joseph were parallel in their lives in all kinds of ways. And what's happening here is Joseph is kind of continuing Jacob's life. So instead of getting a genealogy of Jacob, you get the story of Joseph. So he's Haya Ro'eh et Echav Betzon. He was shepherding with his brothers the sheep, which is also a kind of awkward locution. So what's going on is Joseph sort of trying to join his brothers? Is he apprenticing with his brothers? But whatever it is, he's kind of like set apart. The Hu Na'ar, and he's assisting or Hu Na'ar et b'nei Bilhah. I'm going to say Na'ar typically means like a young person, like maybe teenage age, but here maybe it indicates that he's a helper to the sons of Bilhah, so that's Rachel's handmaiden, and the sons of Et b'nei Zilpah, and the sons of Zilpah. So if you think about the family, Nishei Aviv, his wife, his father's wives, if you think about the family, they're all already lower class because they're neither Rachel nor Leah's children, right? They're the handmaiden's children. So what's going on here? And what does Joseph do? Vayaveh Yosef dibatam ra'a el avihem. So Joseph brought bad reports of them to their father. So he's already trying to lord it over them. Yeah, Alan.
Ro'eh et Echav could also mean he was shepherding his brothers.
Yeah, is he shepherding his brothers? And what would that mean? What does that bring to mind in terms of what's going on here?
Well, he's taking control of them.
He's taking control. Yeah, I like that. That makes sense.
He's putting himself above them.
In any case, he's putting himself above them. Yeah, it looks like he's helping them,
right?
But maybe he's really putting himself above them. Yeah, Daniel.
Dibatam also, I think it's like gossip and stuff. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just they did something bad and it's just reporting. Fake news kind of thing.
It could be fake news, and the other place it's used is when the spies or the scouts go out to scout the land of Israel, and they brought back, right, also a bad report, and the same phrase is used there. So it can be fake news, or it can be like destructive news. Because if you think about what the spies said, or the scouts said, related to the land of Israel, it's not that it was false. It was like, it wasn't in line with a narrative that would take the children of Israel forward.
It's misleading.
It's misleading, yes, it can be misleading, for sure. Okay.
That's what I meant with
Okay. Yeah, Eric.
It says he was a helper to Bilhah and Zilpah. But then the very next thing it says it bad reports about them.
Yeah.
So are we including Leah's sons in the bad reports?
It doesn't seem like we are.
Yeah, the way it's worded in English anyhow.
No, it doesn't seem like it seems like he's with those sons specifically. At least that's what I'm picking up here. Okay, now, next verse. So, like, you can see each one of these verses is chock full of meaningful details. And the next one is really also mysterious. Yisrael ahad et Yosef mikol banav. So Israel, and why are they using that name Israel here instead of Jacob? Which often indicates, like, the stories reaching for, like, a different level of things, maybe a mythic level. Bev, I'll call you in a minute. Israel loved Joseph more than any of his sons. Like, ouch. You know, as I said last night in my sermon, like, the Torah is not shy about sort of exposing Israel's favoritism, or Jacob's favoritism. And it says here, Kivem Zukunim, because he's a child of his old age, hulo, for him. But if you think about it, Benjamin's even more of a child of his old age. So why Joseph doesn't totally explain that. But Asad lo katonet pasim. Like, he didn't keep it to himself. He made for Joseph a coat of many colors to show the favoritism, right? It's like, whoa, what are you thinking, father? Like, are you being like a father of all your children? What are you doing? So, Beth, I'm going to just do one more verse, and I'll call on you. Vayir'u echav ki oto ahav aviha mikol echav. So so his brothers saw that it's him that his father loved above all his brothers. So whatever Jacob was feeling, it's translated itself perfectly, right? They get the message. Vayisneu oto, and they hated him. V'lo yachlu davro l'shalom, and they couldn't speak to him nicely. They couldn't. Which, you know, as I was studying with Rabbi Sharon this morning, I don't know if she's here, struck us as in a way a compassionate view of the brothers. Like, they just couldn't speak to nicely. It wasn't in their capacity. They couldn't do it. But you know how sometimes what?
It was too much.
It's too much. You know, sometimes like some of your family is like, okay, I'm not going to get into this dynamic. It's not happening, right? And then suddenly you're there again. It's like, what happened? And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Wait, there was something else about this verse. Oh, hatred. The hatred, you know, is the force that grows in this parsha. And the first time and only time before this that we have in the book of Genesis, the concept of hatred, I'm pretty sure, is that Leah is referred to as the hated one, right? Which makes a lot of sense here also in terms of the family dynamics. Okay, so I'm going to stop my share and see who online wants to speak. And I see Beth, and I see Beth. Okay, good.
Shabbat shalom. One thing that jumped out at me that has not in the past is, what are the bad reports? And I was thinking about, what could they possibly be? They're out hurting animals. So what, the brothers aren't collecting the lost animals? The brothers are letting wild animals take some of the flocks? The brothers are slaughtering animals in the field and eating them, and they're not supposed to? I mean, what could they possibly be? What could the report
what are they doing as shepherds? Good question. I think the Midrash says like they're engaging in idol worship and other bad things, but I don't remember specifically. But that doesn't seem like obvious. Okay, I'm going to actually finish. I'm going to want to get through some text, and then I'll call on people.
No, it's just a comment.
Okay, quick comment. Go ahead.
No, it's just that it really doesn't matter what it is, because
it doesn't really matter.
It's gossip.
I agree.
It's
I
kind of
agree.
thing.
I agree.
That's the whole point. No matter what they do,
This
it would
is the
be
wrong one.
misleading or bad.
Right. Oh, I know. Okay. It's here. Okay, people can see this?
No,
Sorshi?
no.
Okay, I heard that no, loud and clear. Let's try it again.
It was just too big on the screen, that was all.
It was too big on the screen.
Not even right.
No, it's not
It's
the.
short. It's only a rectangle, not a full.
Okay, hold on. Yes, I'm going to talk about that later. In services. Okay, we're going to try this again. 1 second. Hold on, I have to click on this again.
Say something about that one.
Yeah, you can say, go ahead.
What I was, just on what you said, it's not really about the story, but lately, I come here to better myself, actually, and learn about me and my behavior, but the way I talk to my sister,
Okay, everybody in the room, people on Zoom can't hear people speaking if other people are speaking while they do.
I didn't mean to disturb.
No, you're doing, okay, so let's just,
I was just saying, it's not, sometimes, so when I speak to my sister, there's a tone of annoyance in my voice, and it doesn't matter what I'm saying at that point, because she hears the feeling behind it. And
yes.
I have been noticing that, and it's been pointed out to me, to some loved ones, it's not so much what I'm saying, it's how I'm saying it, and that sort of high, I get into that emotional state, and just kind of learning to not betray, just to feel what you say rather than.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, if you say it in the wrong tone, people understand what you're really saying.
Yeah, they hear just.
Yes, it's kind of a little bit like a dog, right? You can yell at a dog, I love you, and the dog understands, right? Okay. Okay, so where were we? Wait. You?
Hey.
Right here, okay. I'm sorry. Hey, okay, got it. Okay, so by Chalom, okay. Chalom Yosef Chalom, and Joseph dreamed a dream. By Aged le'achav, and he told it to his brothers. Vayosifu od sno'oto, and they hated him even more. They added on to their hatred, which is interesting because the word for adding on is the verb that creates the name Joseph. So there's an abundance of hatred. Okay.
That's really.
Okay. Tony, don't add to the trouble in the room by using inappropriate language. Thank you. Okay, I want to get through the end of this passage. Vayomer alehem, and he said to them, Shim'una, please listen. Like there's an insistence here, please, like listen to me. Hachalom hazeh asher chalamti, this dream that I dreamed. V'hinei, and behold, anachnu me'almim alumim. So we're binding sheaves, but the word for sheaf and the verb for sheaf are the same. B'toch hasadeh, in the field. V'hinei, and behold, kama alumati, v'gam nitzava. And my sheaf rose and is standing up. V'hinei, so here's like a straight line up, right, a vertical line. V'hinei tisubena alumotechem. So your sheaves are all around mine. So there's a straight line up and a circle. Vatishtachavena la'alumati. And you all bowed to my sheaf. Now this is really interesting. I never thought of this intertext. But when I was studying with Rabbi Sharon this morning, Sharon, are you here? When I was studying with Rabbi Sharon this morning, she heard a news story in the background, which is, so do you remember when Jacob was terrified to meet his brother? Yeah. And he wrestled with the angel, and then he divided his whole family. And who was last? Rachel and Benjamin, and Joseph, and Joseph, because Benjamin was not born yet. So what they witnessed, what the family witnessed, or what the children witnessed, is Jacob bowed down to Esau. Right? Didn't he bow down to him 7 times? 7 times. Thank you, Daniel. Bowed down to him 7 times. And it's interesting to think about that here. Like, is there some kind of like deep memory, some early memory of this bowing down, and that makes it way into his dream. It's like that's how brothers relate to each other.
It's a kind of fractal spiral. Where
it's kind of a fractal spiral.
Where we keep on re-embodying the same shit.
This kind of
pattern.
Relationship that's characterized by dominance and competition. Okay, so let's go on. Vayamru lo Echav, and his brother said to him, Hamaloch timloch aleinu? Will you like be king over us? Are you going to set yourself up as king over us? Imashol timshol banu? Will you rule over us? And each verb is doubled. The be king over us and rule over us. So it's really intense for them. Vayosifu, and again, they added more od to their hatred, snow ota. So they hated him even more. Al chalomotav, because of his dreams, the al dvarav, and because of his words. Right? So you can, parents like this, oh my God, what a terrible family
Can you
relationship.
get any worse?
Could it get any worse? Vayachalom od chalom acher. So yes, it can get worse. He dreamed another dream. He said, Per otolechad. He told his brothers. Vayomer. He said, Hine, behold, chalamti chalam od. Like, why? I've dreamed another dream. Why isn't Joseph learning his lesson? Like, what? It's like, you know, like you're on the wrong path and you can't get off of it and keeps trying, you know, harder and harder. You're waiting for the bus that never comes, but you don't want to leave because you've waited for the bus so long that you want to have wasted your time waiting for the bus. Like, he's like, can't get off.
Brothers, is that a crime?
What?
He wants to share with his brothers, is that a crime?
Okay, no, Tony, this is not simple sharing. He's sharing dreams in which they are disempowered and he has power over them. But let me go on and finish this passage. I mean, no, of course it's not a crime, but he wants to share. What's he sharing? What's his messaging to them? He said, "Vayisaper otol echad," and he told it to his brothers. Also, keep your dreams to yourself, kid. You know.
Right, like, why did he need to share so much?
Exactly. Why does he need to share so much? Okay. Vayomer hine chalamti chalom od.
He's a therapist.
Behold, I've dreamed another dream. V'hinei hashemesh hayarech v'achad asar kochavim mishtachavim li. And behold, the sun and the moon and 11 stars are all bowing down to me. So now he's literally the center of the universe. Literally, right? The cosmos are bowing to him. Yisaper el aviv. So the first time he only told his brothers, right? Rabbi Sharon actually pointed that out this morning. Now he's telling his father and his brothers. Yisaper el aviv el echad. Vayid arbo aviv. And his father got angry. Vayomer lo. And he said to him, Ma chalom hazeh asher chalamta. What's this dream that you dreamed? Havo navo ani. I and your mother, ani ve'imcha ve'achecha, and your brothers come to bow to you to the ground. L'shtachavot l'cha arza. So his father's outraged. Like, what? What are you telling me? And this is a beloved child. So he's finally speaking out, saying something. So this passage, I think this is like a summary statement and sort of an understatement. Vayikanu vo'achav, and his brothers were jealous of him. Right? That's kind of like fueling the whole thing. Va'aviv shamar et hadavar, and his father kept the thing in mind. So keep in mind that his father kept the thing in mind.
What does that mean? It's interesting.
Okay, wait. I'm only taking people now who have not spoken. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going. Yeah, Tony, you just call out constantly. So you're a little bit like Joseph. You're annoying us. Okay, Jill. Jill, can you unmute? Okay, if no one else has something to say, I will take quick, very quick comments.
Sorry. Yeah, so if everybody, not everybody, but so many people back then were, prophetic, right? And so dreams were really, really, really important. It wasn't just kind of like, I don't need to share it.
Turned out to be a prophetic. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that him sharing it may not have been him showing off. Like he doesn't have agency over the dreams that he had, and the dreams are prophetic, and they have impact on his family. Why wouldn't he share that with them?
So you're absolutely right. Dreams are prophetic. His dreams were prophetic. I'm not questioning his agency over his dreams. I'm questioning or wondering about the decision to relay his dreams to his family.
Right, but what I'm saying is that if everybody...
I hear your point. I'm moving on.
Okay.
Wait, Rachel? Yeah, Rachel, Lori.
My question is, at the time this was written down, did anyone of the people reading this or hearing this understand that this was unsophisticated on the part of the father? That the father appears to me just as clueless as the son.
Oh, he does, for sure. And remember that that's in the backdrop of Isaac's cluelessness. There's an unconsciousness here that we'll see intensify in a minute. Okay,
No,
Lori.
it's just a very simple comment.
Yeah.
It's just like, if it had only come from the father about how he felt about his son, and Joseph deflected it, or Joseph, I mean, if he had just been able to, deflect, it would have been a whole different story, but he joins the father, like really what we're saying. He joins the father in this, making him higher.
Yes, which is
so much worse.
Yeah, which I think, I mean, just to, to connect to what Jill's saying, what you're saying, I think his behavior definitely adds fuel to the fire, for sure. And you can understand perhaps that Joseph also feels alone. Like maybe his father loves him, but his brothers don't. And he keeps trying to get attention from his brother and sort of occupy.
Sure that he cares, but I don't feel that he cares that his brother, his brother.
Really? I don't know. Yeah. I'm just wondering. I'm wondering if he feels disempowered and desperate. Hold on.
Yeah.
And desperate for his brothers to see him in some way. Okay. Daniel, quick comment, and then Ronnie on the screen.
Just, it strikes me that Yaakov is called father. So it highlights that in this whole part of the story, he's not called by his name, he's called by father. Like his father did, his father that, right? So I think it reinforces everything we're saying here.
Yeah, how is he as a father role? Yeah, except for being called Jacob and then Israel.
Right, at the beginning.
At the beginning,
yeah,
yes.
in this hated part in the dreams, it's always the father.
Yeah, Lord.
It occurs to me, a young child, he's 17.
He's 17.
Whatever,
Yeah.
Children tend to call attention to themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
The dream and also.
Yes. Right, and there's something wrong with the sound. What's going on here?
Who's talking?
Someone's talking on screen that should be muted. Caroline, could you just mute everybody and then they'll unmute themselves when they have to talk? So, if you think about the trajectory really of Joseph, it's incredible. Because he starts off as a really self-centered person. And at the end, he sees a bigger picture and understands that he's not at the center of the universe and sort of centers God in his world. So there's a real character transformation. Okay.
Maybe both. Could be the telling.
Okay, Tony, I'm sorry, you really need to wait, because I'm handling a lot here. So, thank you. Okay, Ronnie and then Barbara.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I was just struck that the father loved him the best and made him this special coat, etc. But when Joseph tells him the dream, which could imply that Joseph was going to overturn the natural order of who had the power and who was the paternal figure, his father reacts and says to this something like, just a minute, hold on here. What do you think you're doing, kid?
Right, he finally notices and says something when it has to do with him.
Right. And when it has to do with him in a potentially threatening way.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So it was okay as long as Joseph was the favorite and all his brothers hated, that was okay. But this is the point that he chooses to speak out. Yes. I think that's a really important point. Okay, Barbara.
Hi, Shabbat Shalom. I was just thinking a lot about how Joseph, the brothers, all 11 brothers, have the same mother, and they're kind of like a monolith, and he's a different part of the family, and so
they didn't have the same mother, no.
Right, exactly. Well, who didn't have the
No.
same? They didn't,
The brothers
they
didn't
had,
know. They're two handmaidens.
I
They're
see,
two
okay,
handmaidens. Yeah.
okay,
They
but,
didn't have the
but,
same mother.
right, but they're a monolith. They're, I stand corrected. They stand, together. And the only way for him, as at least from watching even my own life, as the very youngest with a lot of much older brothers, is to try to get attention, perhaps in outrageous ways, and to really
Yes.
push against their perceived authority, because they're always going to perceive that they have authority as being older than them. So
Right. So
it's
he's doing his best.
understandable.
Yeah, I hear you. Joe, did you have something?
I just wanted to
Joe,
share.
Joseph?
I just wanted to share.
Yeah.
Go just along the lines of what you shared last night, Rabbi, about Wicked and the Oz, right?
Yeah.
We're reading this as Wizard of Oz right now. There's still Wicked in there. Meaning, we're reading it one way. That, oh, he's juvenile, oh, why is he angry at his brothers? But that's only because the dreams are misinterpreted according to the simple way to look at it.
So you're with Jill on,
Yeah,
with Jill.
yeah, and so, yeah.
But what about the tattling, Joe?
What about the
What about the tattling?
What about the tattling? Okay, he's up to 17. We describe Yosef in 3 ways just now. He's a nar. He's a shepherd with his older brothers.
He's a nar, he's a lad.
Right.
He's a
and
shepherd.
Ben Zakunim, if you look at
And he's a
Rashi,
child of an old age.
He learned a lot with his father.
Uh-huh.
Learned a lot of Torah with his father.
Okay.
So he's all of the above. He sees the room always as he gets older, but when he's younger, he doesn't really see everything.
Yeah, okay, so he'll mature as time goes on.
Right. So
She's saying he's not that bad, actually.
No.
Okay, all right, I
And the
appreciate.
interpretation of the dream is going only one way, because there's many other
There's
conversations.
definitely room for that interpretation. You, Jill, some others, and I actually have a lot of compassion for him. Like, who was saying? Laura's like, he wants attention. That makes sense.
And by the way, these dreams are true.
And the dreams turn out to be true. They turn out to be
His
true.
delivery's not good.
Absolutely. You know, what'd you say? The timing is a lot.
He's 17.
Yeah, okay, so let me say one more thing about that, which is, I was in my chavruta with Rabbi Shannon this morning, a really interesting question came up, which is, when someone else is jealous, how much responsibility do you have? In other words, how do we communicate? And it's harder when we're young, right? But how do you communicate what, your blessings or what you have to people who might feel vulnerable in a certain area? Right? You have a relationship, you don't have a relationship. You're single, you have a kid, you don't have kids. You have money, you don't have. There's so many planes on which there are haves and have-nots. We might have, we might have not. I might feel jealous of a more successful rabbi. I can't imagine that.
Define success.
So what was your findings?
What was our finding? We're just thinking that our findings were observing that, at least at this stage of our lives, we try to, at the best of our ability, not to make someone else feel bad about what they don't have. That was our finding.
But I think there's a balance between making yourself smaller
Yes.
for others and
So Lori said
and not
something
fall
very
over the top,
interesting
right,
here.
right.
Okay, this could be this is a
Yes,
really interesting
right,
thing
right.
that you're raising, especially for women, right? Are we allowed to
yes.
occupy space?
Yes, exactly.
Very interesting. Okay, so yeah. And the other thing that Sharon said, like in an age of self-promotion, right? How do we or don't we promote ourselves? But so Joseph is promoting himself.
But he's, remember.
Okay, I'm gonna go on. I'm sorry, I'm gonna cut it off. I'm sorry. And I'm gonna also have people to wait until they're called on, just because there's
yes,
a lot to manage. Okay, now, things get even more interesting, and I'm gonna get to the end of this passage before we have a conversation. That's my intention.
Anyway, anyway, I'm gonna attempt it. You got a tough game.
There's like a subtext going on here. Okay, the drama between me and Tony. That was a very good. Okay. All right. So now, the last thing we saw, the verse before, his father kept it in mind. Now, there's all kinds of interesting things happening with the language right here. Vayilchu echad le'ot et son avihem b'Shechem. So his brothers went to shepherd the sheep in Shechem, or the sheep of their father in Shechem. Okay, so there are several alarm bells, literary alarm bells going off here. One is lir'ot, you'll see through the passage, can also be read in terms of evil, right? So, are his brothers going to do evil in Shechem? And if you remember, Shechem is the place where great evil has already happened. Their sister Dinah was raped, and the brothers massacred all the men in town. Lots of violence in Shechem. Okay, so let's see what happens. Vayomer Yisrael, again, the name of Jacob being used here is Israel. Vayomer Yisrael Yosef, and Israel said to Joseph, Halo achecha ro'im b'Shechem? So aren't your brothers shepherding in Shechem? But what could also be read is as, aren't your brothers being evil in Shechem? So it could be sort of hearkening back towards, the horrors that happened in Shechem, or what they're doing right now. I'm going to send you, I'm going to cast you over to them, right? I'm going to throw you over to them. And what does Joseph said? Vayomer lo hineni. Here I am. I'm ready to do your bidding.
Wow.
It's very intense. Now let's look at a midrash on this verse.
Diane, where are you reading from?
I was reading in number 3.
Oh.
Okay, I just finished verse 13.
And was there a word like that you got the Hebrew word for when you were saying?
Lir'ot.
It means what you were.
It means either shepherding or evil.
Thank you.
Or halo achecha ro'im, or aren't your brothers ra'im, evil or shepherding? Now remember that Torah is originally written as without vowels, not vocalized. Right, so you could kind of have fun in the way that you read some words. Okay, so we're looking now for a minute to source 4, Genesis Rabbah, the midrash on this moment in the text. Okay, so are your brothers not herding in Shechem? Go and I will send you to them. And he said, Hineni. Vayomer Yisrael el Yosef. And Israel says to Joseph, Halo achecha ro'im b'Shechem. Aren't your brothers shepherding in Shechem? Rabbi Tanhuma b'shem Rabbi Berchia. So Rabbi Tanhuma said in the name of Rabbi Berchia, Nahag bo b'chavod, k'mora ha'av al haben. So he treated him with deference in accordance with the reverence due a father from the son. So his father is saying, why don't you do this? And how is the son responding? Lo hineni. He says, hineni, here I am, ready to do your bidding. It's a kind of deference. Amar Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, and Rabbi Chama, the son of Chanina, said, Hadvarim halalu, these things, or these words, Haya Yaakov Avinu Nizkar. Jacob, our patriarch, would remember these words, would look back and remember these words. Ume'av mitchatkin, and his innards would be torn to shreds. Like when he thinks that later, that Joseph is dead, he's going to look back at this moment and his gut is going to feel all torn up. Yodea hayita she'achecha son'im otka, v'hayita omer li hineni. You knew that your brothers hated you, and you said hineni. And you said, I am willing to go. So in other words, this midrash shows an awareness that Israel at this moment doesn't seem to have, which takes me back to the Isaac moment when Jacob pretends to be Esau, and he keeps saying to Jacob, like, oh, are you really Esau? Come closer, let me smell your clothes. Is it really you? And he didn't recognize him. We're going to talk about how that verb recognize or not recognize functions in Genesis a little more. Okay. Next verse, 14. Vayomer lo. So now we're in source 3, number 14. Vayomer lo, lech na re'eh et shlom achecha ve'et shlom hatzon. go and see the wholeness, the health, the peace of your brothers, which feels like an ironic word used here, and the health of the sheep, right? Shlom hatzon. V'hashiveni davar, and come back and tell me how it went. And again, vayishlachehu, and he cast them out, or he sent him, Emek Hebron, from the valley of Hebron, vayavosh Shema, and he walked towards them. So now here's a little mystical, potentially mystical moment in the text. Vayimsaehu ish, and he found a man. So the last time we found a man was when Jacob wrestled with a man all night long, who turned out to be an angel of God. So he finds a man, an unnamed man.
The man found him.
Oh, you're right. The man found him. Sorry. Good point. V'yim sa'ehu ish, right? A man found him. V'hinei to'eh b'tadeh. And Joseph is wandering the fields, which also reminds me of his grandfather Isaac, who came out, from or in the fields when for the first time after the Akedah, after the binding of Isaac, where Isaac reemerges in the fields and catches a glimpse of Rebekah's camel. Vayish alehu ha'ish, and the man asked Joseph a question, saying, "Ma tavakesh, what are you seeking? What are you looking for?" Vayomer et achai anochi mivakesh, I am seeking my brothers. And again, Asher Chaim wrote a beautiful sermon in which this was highlighted. Like, what do you say? I am seeking my brothers. Like, I am seeking to connect to my brothers. I'm seeking to repair my relationship with my brothers. I am seeking my brothers. Hagida na li efo heimro'um. Tell me where they are shepherding, or tell me where they are being evil. And Hagida na, the last time we saw that phrase was at the end of the scene of Jacob wrestling with the angel. So it's another echo of that scene. Vayomer ha'ish, and the man says, Nas'u mizeh ki shamati omrim nelcha dotaina. And the man says, go up from here, or go from here, because I heard that they're going to, when I heard them say, let's go to Dotan. Vayelech Yosef achar echad, and Yosef went after his brothers, vayimsaem betotan, and he found them in Dotan. So note in verse 18, Vayir'u oto merachok. They saw him from a distance, something else that Asher Chaim highlighted in the sermon for today. And I definitely recommend it, Asher Chaim. I don't know if you're sharing. And so they saw him at a distance, right? And it says, B'terem yikarev alehem, before they came close to him, before he came close to them. So, there's this distance that I think allows hatred to survive and thrive. When you come close and you have a face-to-face encounter, often that dissipates the anger or the hatred. Often that dissipates the anger or the hatred, yes. Right, so they see him from a distance and they want to kill him. Vayitnaklu oto lahamito, and they plan to kill him. Vayamru ish el achiv, and one says to his brother, Hine bal hasalomot halazeh ba. Here comes that dreamer. Here comes that dreamer. So they're not even referring to him by name, right? Here comes that person. It's very sort of dehumanizing and depersonalizing. Okay, we're going to stop my share. I'm going to call on Richard. Go ahead.
Thanks. Shabbat Shalom. Elizabeth is sitting here listening to all this, and she pointed out a few minutes ago, there's a kind of a Deus Ex Machina quality to this story. That the hatred, Deus Ex Machina quality to the story, something going on from on high. In addition to the personality issues that Joseph presents, that we have to go through this, I don't want to say ritual, but this storyline in order to get to the Egypt and the Exodus. that we need the people who are doing the books need to set Joseph up as a fall guy and have him sent off to Egypt in order to set up the later part of the story. And there's a certain quality of truth of that. So you can look at this as part of a, yeah, she just said a necessary prerequisite to the great myth of Judaism, the Exodus.
Absolutely.
That's so critical for us as a people, and that we need to go through this kind of storyline, at least this sort of storyline, in order to get there. That's a very different way of thinking about this than looking at it as the foibles and difficulties and problems in Joseph's head, just like all of the other ancestors in biblical storylines. But there's a sort of double set of qualities about this whole setup, particularly when the line that you just read about the Ish found Joseph, the man again, oy vey, like the wrestling match.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm done. Thanks.
Okay. Let me support that. So there are different levels upon which we can read this, right? There's like the great mythic line, which starts with God telling Abraham, your children are going to be enslaved in Egypt for he says there 400, God says there 400 years, and you're going to be taken out, right, by me, right? So how are we going to get to Egypt? So this is sort of getting to Egypt, and if you look at the verbs that get us to Egypt, again and again, like, and they went down, and they go down and down, and Joseph is cast down into a pit. So there's this downward spiral of the people, like, going into Egypt, and then they're lifted up by God, right? When they are liberated. So you can also think about this as a kind of a pregnancy story, right? That goes, the baby descends, it goes down and down and down, and then finally born. So there's definitely this downward motion, and we can read it on that mythical, hold on a second. You can read it on that mythic level, and that's when the word Israel becomes really important, even though it looks like Jacob's doing horrible things, he's being called Israel. And I think Richard is exactly right. It's because it's getting us towards our destiny. These are moments of destiny. Okay, I'm going to call. Do you have a very quick one line?
Yeah, just pointing out that Ish is one way to understand that Jacob wrestled with himself. So it's finding his own identity. So here with Joseph might be a similar thing. It's starting to the thing that you spoke about yesterday, reaching to his inner child. So this could be the first motion.
Nice. Interesting. Interesting. And it's also it's the first time we're encountering someone from outside the crucible, the family dynamic, which is also interesting. Okay, Paul.
Shabbat shalom. Sorry I missed the first 15 minutes.
Good to see you, Paul.
Yeah, great to see you all.
Are you tuning in from Yerushalayim? Where are you?
No, I've been living in Yafo all these 8 months, and I moved to Noga, which is just next to Yafo. And now I'm only 4 blocks from my Beit Knesset here, Zikra Baruch.
Nice.
Despite the fact that this week the Houthis sent 3 missiles this way, and I've been in the Mamad 3 times in a week. But anyway, I read just yesterday. Well, I thought before because of last year when I investigated Vayeshev, my second bar mitzvah, the whole idea of the face, of panim. And I happened to come across yesterday that someone I know wrote that Rabbi Yehuda says that Yaakov saw himself in his son's face, like as soon as he was born. And so that says a lot about Yaakov's investment in Yosef. And Yosef, it in many ways was kind of a burden for him to look like his father. And it definitely played out with his brothers. And the whole idea that I believe we understand that Yosef kind of styled his hair and painted his eyes, kind of disguising perhaps himself in some way. And his father's face is very important in the story that as it continues, because when Yosef comes to Mitzrayim, his face and his body is attracted. Many people are attracted to his face and to his person. But yet when I think it's when he's thrown into the prison, his salvation is that his father's face appears to him and he has confidence, and he understands that he's going to go on and do the right thing. And then we go a couple chapters ahead in Vayigash. I don't have the Hebrew here, but you know.
I want to go on and do more material, so.
Yeah, I just want to say, but that when Yaakov first sees Yosef in Mitzrayim, he says, "I can die now after seeing your face," and I relate to this a lot because I looked a lot like my father, and I found it really, I did not like that as an adolescent, and I would push my father away, and my son had the same burden of looking very similar to me, so it's fascinating for me.
Very interesting. Thank you, Paul. Okay, Adel, quick comment because I want to go back to the text.
Yes, I'm resonating with Baal HaChalamot, so master of dreams rather than dreamer.
Nice.
Recognizing.
So he's described by the brothers as a master of dreams, and he becomes a master dream interpreter. So that's really interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. All right, I'm going to. Sorry, Wendy. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I want to make two comments. One is the fact that from the brothers, he's the one without any mother. That his mother died in Matthew.
Yes.
So maybe if he had a mother, she would have reined him in a little bit.
Interesting. Interesting.
Mothers do that.
Or, you know, and I think it you know, I think it added to his loneliness as a 17-year-old boy not having a mother and needing to be seen. I disagree with what Paul said in Israel.
Even though he said it in Israel, go ahead.
Paul that's here. In the text, in the Torah itself, Joseph is described as beautiful, and the exact same word and sentence is used to describe his mother Rachel.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Thank you. Thank you.
He resembles his mother because the Hebrew words, the Hebrew sentence to describe his mother as beautiful,
It's the same exact words. Yes.
the Hebrew sentence to describe him as beautiful is exactly the
Yeah.
same.
Nice.
So if anything, I think he was like his mother.
Okay, got that, Wendy. Beautiful. I'm glad that you.
Hey, Rabbi Dan, sorry. She was a little bit quiet because she wasn't close. Could you just quickly reiterate? Could you quickly reiterate what she said, please?
Yes. So I think the first point, and let me know if I forgot something, Wendy. The first point was that, you know, a 17-year-old boy without his mother might act out and need attention because he's missing his mother. And the second point is he looked exactly like his mother because literally there's a phrase that describes his looks as being beautiful that exactly describes his mother's.
There was a third point, though, that his mother, if she was still around, would have helped him sing and
Thank you, Tony. Third point was if his mother was around, she would have reined in his behavior. But there's no one to kind of like, because his father's not doing it, rein in his behavior. Nice, thank you. Okay, let's see.
Can I just say one last thing?
You can. Because you asked, yes.
Thank you. Haviz is the gift, and the gift by Haviz, rendered by Daniel Ladinsky, disciple devotee of Meher Baba. Haviz talks a lot about how each of us, the sun and moon, bows to each of us. That when we see ourselves properly, we will see that the whole universe bows to us.
Beautiful. So that reminds me of the Hasidic sort of parable or saying that you should walk around with a note in each pocket, one that says that you're created in the image of God, and the other that you are but dust and ashes.
Image of God as in the world was created for me.
As in the world was created for me. Exactly. The world was created for me, I am by dust and ashes. And we go between those two, which also speaks to what Lori was saying before about do we make ourselves small or large? And how do we make ourselves small or large? Yeah. Right? And what are the best ways to make ourselves small or large? But if they eclipse, if we make ourselves large in a way that eclipses other people, that's a problem. Right? I'm going on.
Good job, Diane.
But thank you, Tony. What you said was very profound. Thank you. Okay. Okay. You have a question?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
As you had asked,
Yeah, do you have an answer? It's not the topic for today, and it's such a big topic that I'm going to go away from it.
Sadhana, spiritual practice.
But it's a really great question, right? It's a really great question, and I'd love to collect texts and for us to have a session devoted just to that. Okay, so now let's see what happens to Joseph. So now we're in source number 5. Now let's go and kill him. And we'll throw him into one of those pits and we'll say an evil beast, again, evil beast ate him up, right? And so who's the evil beast here? Perhaps it's their side of them that's the, a side of them is acting like an evil beast, and we'll see what becomes of his dreams.
Excuse me, Rabbi Diane, excuse me, we can't see the text.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, that's what you.
It seems to be up on my screen. Is that true? Oh, I have to scroll. Good point. I am scrolling and nothing's happening. Okay, so let's see. Let's try it again. Sorry about that. Sorry, let's try this again. The wrong things keep coming up. Why is that happening? Okay, let's try this one. See if it works. No. Why does Omicron keep coming up? Hold on. It seems to be gone. Okay, I'm going to ask you, Caroline, to screen share since it doesn't seem to be working for me. Caroline? Caroline? There you go. Number 5. Number 5, please. Okay, great.
Thank
All right,
you.
so I can you read now?
Yes, my camera's a
Number
bit
12.
dodgy this morning, but I'm honored to read. Right, Chayara Achalatu, an evil beast has eaten him. We'll see what happens to his dreams. Vayishma Reuven. Reuven heard, Vayasilehu mi yadam, and he rescued him from their hands. Vayomer lo nakenu nafesh. He said, let us not strike him in his soul. Vayomer alehem Reuven. Reuven said to them, Al tishpachu dam, do not shed blood. Ashlichu oto el habor hazeh asher bamidbar, v'yad al tishlechuvo. Cast him into this cistern, this deep hole, which is in the wilderness, so that you will not send a hand against him. He can die of natural causes. Lim'an hitziloto miyadam, in order to save him from their hands. Lahashivo el aviv, to return him to his father. Vahi ka'asher ba Yosef el Ehav, and it was, Vayihi, the ominous, and it was, as Yosef came to his brothers, Vayafshitu et Yosef et kutanto, they stripped Joseph of his tunic, et ketonet hapasim asher alav, the colorful tunic that was on him. Vayikahuhu.
Stop there 1 second. So the only other occurrence of a ketonet pasim, a coat of many colors, is in Samuel 2, where Tamar, one of the children of David, is raped, and then she strips herself of her coat of many colors afterwards in a sign of mourning. But what it seems to be is a sign of royalty. Right, so it's so symbolic that they strip him of his status and his status as their father's favorite one.
I had 2 coats.
What?
Seems like you had 2 coats. Ketonet and ketonet.
No, they just say, I think it's like they're defining the coat. Which coat was it? It was ketonet apatim. But maybe it's two coats. It's a possible reading. Okay, go on, Ashafayim.
Vayiktahuhu, and they took him. Vayashlichu to Habora, and they cast him into the cistern. Habor rek ein bo mayim. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. Vayeshvu le'echol lechem, and they sat down to eat bread.
Okay, can you imagine they took him, they stripped him, and then they sat down to eat like nothing was wrong. They're that heartless. They're that numb to their brother's feelings. But they're not understanding that he's a human being.
Or they were celebrating.
Or they're celebrating. They're enjoying their revenge. Yeah, no, good point, Paul.
Vayis'u einehem vayir'u, they lifted their eyes and saw. V'hinei orhat Yishmaelim ba'a migil'ad, and behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites arriving from Gilead. Ugamalehem nos'im nechot utzri valot, and their camels were laden with spices and spices and spices. Holchim lehorid Misraima, traveling to bring down towards Egypt. Vayomer Yehuda elehav, Judah said to his brothers, Ma besa ki naharog et ahinu v'chisinu adamo. What advantage, what's in it for us if we kill our brother and cover his blood? Lechu v'nimkarennu la'yishmaelim v'yadenu al tehibo. Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, so that our hands are not touching him. Kiahenu v'sarenuhu. After all, he's our brother, our flesh and blood. Vayishma'u Ehav, and his brothers listened. Meanwhile, vayavru anashim midyanim soharim. Meanwhile, Midianite guys, traders, came by or passed by. Vayimshahu vayalu et Yosef min habor. They drew him out, lifted Yosef out of the cistern. Vayimkeru et Yosef la'yishmaelim. They sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites, be'esrim kasef, for 20 pieces of silver. Vayaviu et Yosef misraima. And they, the Ishmaelites, brought Yosef down towards Egypt.
So the brothers' plans were thwarted, right? They're not the ones who benefited from the sale of Joseph.
At least that's Ed Greenstein's read, that there is intentional ambiguity here, but that seems to be who's doing what to whom.
Yes, that's right.
Vayashov Reuven el Habor. Meanwhile, Reuven came back to the cistern. V'hinei ein Yosef babor. But there's no Joseph in the cistern. Vayikra et begadav. And he tore his clothing, a sign of grief. Vayashov el Ehav vayomar. He returned to his brothers and said, Hayeled einenu va'ani ana aniva. The boy is gone. Where am I coming from?
Which is interesting because that line is also said by Tamar, David's daughter, after she's raped. Like, where can I turn? What can I do? Sign of complete existential disorientation. Okay, so just because we only have a few minutes left. All right, I think I'm going to do the next one, number 6. And then briefly talk about the midrash at the end, if we can. So, yeah, I think we can. So what do the brothers do? You know, I'll go back to reading, Ashafayim. It's okay, thank you. Yosef, and they took Yosef's coat, Vayishchatu seir izim, and they slaughtered a goat. Vayitbulu et hakatonet badam, and they took the coat and they dipped it in blood. So again, what an amazing and rich symbol to have this beautiful coat of colors dipped in blood, right? The father's symbol of favoritism dipped in blood and presented it to him as like, almost like, look what you did. Like, you did that. Vayishalchu et ketonet hapasim vayaviu el aviam. And there's a weird agency or lack of agency going on here. They sent the ketonet pasim, and then they brought it to their father. Vayamru zot mitza'anu. We found this. They said, we found this. Like they had nothing to do with it. Hakerna, recognize. Now that word recognize is a thread all throughout Genesis. It says Isaac doesn't recognize his son, right? And now, and in a little while in the next passage.
Which is the word for recognize?
What? Hakerna. Hakerna.
Thank you.
So Isaac doesn't recognize his son. Jacob doesn't recognize which woman he's sleeping with on his wedding night. And now they're saying to their father, recognize this. Is this your son's coat or not? He looked. And now he recognizes it. Vayakira. He comes to the wrong conclusion. Vayomer, or maybe it's the right one. Ketonet b'ni, Vayomer ketonet, oh, this is my son's coat. And he supplies the lie. Chaya ra'a achalatu. An evil beast ate him up. Tarach Yosef, and Yosef is all torn up. So when he says an evil beast, and again there's that word ra'ah, which is also, remember, associated with shepherding, is he indicating in a way that his sons have become that evil beast? Like, are there two levels of awareness here, as there were with Isaac when his son Jacob was before him pretending to be Esau? Vayikra Yaakov simlotav, and Jacob ripped up his clothes. Vayasem sak b'motnav, and he dressed up in sackcloth, as people do when they grieve. V'yitadel al beno yamim rabim, and he observed mourning for his sons for many days. And part of the next verse in Hebrew is cut off, so let me just look up the screen. I can't see 35. Oh yeah, in the Hebrew on the screen either, because there's this big black bar. Can you raise it up a little bit? Let's see what happens. No, not make it, no. Okay, no, it's not happening. Okay, I can't read 35 in the Hebrew. But anyway.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Vayakumu kol banav v'chol benotav lenachamo. All of his sons and daughters came to comfort him. Vayma'ein nahem. He refused to be comforted. Vayomer, and he said, Ki ered el beni avel she'ola. I will go down mourning my son to the grave. Vayefk oto aviv. His father wept for him. V'hamedanim machru oto el Misraim lepotifar seris paro sar tabachim. Meanwhile, the traders or Midianites sold him to Egypt, to Potiphar, officer of Paro. Sar HaTabachim is his title.
So here we have, for Jacob, it seems he experiences this as the end of the story. But meanwhile, the story continues. And the next story we have in the Torah is the story of Judah going down from his brothers, and he marries this woman who's called the Bat Shua, the daughter of Shua, who seems to be a Canaanite. She's not a Hebrew. And they have 3 sons, and Tamar marries the first one, and God kills him, and Tamar marries the second one. I'm not going to get into all the details because we don't have a lot of time. And he also dies because he's evil in the sight of God, because he doesn't do the right thing in terms of his responsibility for the widow. And then he has a third son named Shelah. Now, Shelah in Hebrew means belonging to her. And Tamar should have married the third brother, but Judah withholds the brother from her. And then she sets herself up as a prostitute on the crossroads of eyes. That's the translation of the Hebrew place. And she veils herself. And Judah does not recognize her. So again, we have this verb of recognition. He doesn't recognize his daughter-in-law. He sleeps with her. And then she is pregnant with twins. And he says, bring her out. She's going to be burnt because she should not. She technically belonged to Shelah, which means she committed adultery. And instead, she says to him, to Judah, I slept with the man to whom these belong, right?
He didn't have the money to pay, so he left her.
Right, he left his signet, his cord, and his staff, and he recognized his cord. So again, that verb of recognition, he recognized the cord, staff, and signet, and took responsibility for what happened. Judah did. And then she gives birth to twins, and one of them is establishes the line for David and for the Messianic line.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I want to read the last midrash here, because I think it's really important. And goes back to what Richard said about levels on which we read all these texts. So I'm just going to, since we have 5 minutes left, and I have to go read services, I'm just going to read this in English.
Which sources?
The last one, 9. It was at that time. So the, biblical literary scholars and the rabbis both wonder, what is this story of Judah doing in the middle of the Joseph story? Because from 37 to 50 is all the Joseph story, and it's suddenly this story about Tamar and Judah. So what's going on? So the Midrash says the tribes were engaged in the sale of Joseph. Joseph was engaged in sackcloth and fasting. I think they mean Jacob there. Reuben was engaged in sackcloth and fasting. Jacob was engaged in sackcloth and fasting, and Judah was engaged in taking a wife for himself. So everyone's mourning. They try to sell Joseph, but what is God doing? Engaged in creating the light of the Messianic king. Wow. So in other words, human beings do what human beings do on this level. They have limited sight. There's all kind of trickery. There's all kind of deception. But what's God doing? Something else entirely. Something that we're not aware of in the least bit.
We are aware of it.
Well, maybe we are. Maybe sometimes we are aware. I don't know. But we're only aware insofar as we're aware. We're not aware of what we're not aware of. Sure. So this sort of says like, oh, there's this huge, bigger picture. You can stop screen share, Carolyn. There's this huge, bigger picture